Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Max Frequency Podcast. I'm your host, Max Roberts, and I have the distinct pleasure of being joined this time, once again, by Casey Liss. Hey, Casey.
Hello.
Hello. We're in the future now.
We are comfortably in the future, and it is nice here. The world is still spinning, despite the efforts of every politician across the planet. So far, so good.
Yes. Oh, my gosh. See, I listened to the last time that we spoke on an episode, which was September of 22, last time we recorded a show. And I was getting ready to become a dad, and then 2 weeks later, she decided to show up early. So I became a dad.
I know, this is so exciting. Congratulations.
Yes, it is very exciting. She's the best, and now she's running around, and it's kind of cool, but also she's throwing a lot of tantrums now.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
There's like a mood swing now, and I'm not sure. You tell me, does it get better when they can talk back, like, and communicate with you what's wrong? Because right now it's just a lot of guessing.
Yeah, so it's better and worse. So the older they get, the more they have opinions, which in some ways is nice, but in a lot of ways isn't. But particularly, my recollection was that particularly for Michaela, she would get very frustrated. My daughter, we have two kids. Sorry if you don't know who I am. I did that faux pas where I assume everyone knows me, but which is so uncool. But yeah, so we have two kids. Declan is 9, Michaela is 6, and so when Michaela was super little, she would get very frustrated when we wouldn't understand what she wanted. And so her being able to verbalize, to your point, I want a ball, or, I'm hungry, or whatever. We did the baby sign language thing where we taught each of them like the bare minimum of signs so they could at least get the gist of what they wanted across. But once she could be more explicit about, this is what I'm seeking, or what need I want fulfilled, that did make everything quite a bit easier. Unfortunately, though, that coincides with them being mobile, as you mentioned. And so you can't just plop them somewhere and expect them to not move. And then they start to become daredevils, and they want to climb all the things and throw all the things. And so it's a double-edged sword, and that's, in my experience so far, all of parenting. Like, in so many ways, a lot of things do get easier. And I think on the whole, things have unquestionably gotten quite a bit easier, especially once all of your children are out of toddlerhood. So this would have been, around the time that Michaela was turning, 3 or 4. Then she's a real person at this point, and yes, she has opinions, but we can talk to her about it like a person. It's rather than, no, you may not have your 75th M&M. That's too much. Well, why? Because it's just too much. It's bad for your belly, and it's et cetera, et cetera. So it does get easier on the whole, but with every forward step, there's at least a lateral or sometimes reverse step as well. So the trend line is 100% toward easier. I'm not trying to say it isn't, but don't expect that there's just some cliff, a happy cliff that you just fall off of, and suddenly everything is cake because of it.
I'm not under the illusion that it will magically all become a piece of cake, but I am looking forward to her being able to speak in at least some form of a sentence instead of just mama, dada, and sign language for more. It's like, well, there isn't anymore. So I don't know how to help you there, kid.
With Declan in particular, he was obsessed with bread to eat, when he was a kid, just any kind of bread. That's all I cared about. And one of my, seared into my cerebral cortex kind of memories is little, toddler baby Declan doing the sign for more, which the way we taught it, and perhaps this isn't correct, but if you're looking at your hands, at your palms, and you bring your fingers together, almost like you're trying to maybe milk the world's smallest cow, and then you twist your hands so that now your fingertips are pointed at each other, and you smack them together over and over again, right?
And that's
what we did. Yeah, and that's how we did more. And so I have visions of Declan in his high chair, which seems like a different life at this point. But anyway, Declan in his high chair, vigorously mashing his fingertips together. B, because B was bread. B, and he was just mashing his fingers together as quick as he could because he was saying more bread, more bread, more bread, more bread. It was the funniest thing. I don't know. We probably have it on video somewhere, but it was the funniest thing. That's all we heard every meal. B. It was kind of like the Nemo, right? It was kind of like the Nemo birds with mine, except it was B.
Mine?
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. Man.
But yeah, so a lot has happened in 2-ish years. You're a dad now. That's incredible. And you've survived almost 2 years, so that's also incredible and worth
sleep
applauding.
Has returned to a normal.
Don't say that. Don't put that energy out there. You got to knock on some wood fast, my friend. You never know when a regression will come. No. Oh, this is a mistake. This is a mistake.
She has been such a good sleeper in the sense of she sleeps through the night. Mm-hmm. The getting to bed was tough for a stretch there. It took like half an hour of rocking, and we finally got the routine down. Routine is so important with bedtime. You know, we read the books, we turn the lights, we brush our teeth, the whole deal. So going to bed and staying asleep, all pretty solid. It's the what time does she wake up that's getting a bit frustrating a little bit. It's like just a half hour earlier than we would prefer.
Yep. Yeah, I cannot remember the last time our children let us sleep past 7 o'clock because we have, and you and I were discussing before we started recording that, Declan now has like an out of service in every sense of the word iPhone that he uses for like a sleep white noise machine.
Yeah. And
as his clock, his bedside clock, and he'll just, look and see, okay, it's after 7, I can get out of bed. But for Michaela, we have one of those clocks that like lights up when it's time to get up. And we have that set for 7 o'clock on the weekends. And I think in the 9 years that at least one of the children has existed, and maybe thrice they've let us sleep in past 7. Like, it's ridiculous. They are just early risers. There's nothing we can do.
Yeah.
That's all right.
It's okay. She'll get better eventually. Maybe she'll turn into her mother someday and just try to sleep in as long as possible. I don't know.
A man can dream.
I can dream.
Other things have happened with you and I, though.
Yeah, we met
in the last couple of years. We did.
Person.
It was phenomenal. I know I'm on your podcast, and it's kind of my role here to blow smoke up your butt, but I really do mean this. It was the most wonderful way to arrange a rendezvous with someone at all, but particularly someone that we had spoken several times but hadn't met, because you did exactly the correct thing, and you basically said, "Tell me where you'll be and when, and I will figure it out," which is. Yes. Just chef's kiss, the correct way to make this happen. And I try very hard to be like that when I'm on your side of the table, you know what I mean? And sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. But especially because what we haven't said yet is that we met at Disney World because for Michaela's 5th birthday, which was just over a year ago now.
Which is crazy.
Yeah, we were, which is bananas. We were going down to Disney just like we did with Declan's 5th, a few years before. And we treated the kids to, we treated all of us, but the generating, I can't think of the word I'm looking for, but the inciting, there we go. The inciting event was the birthday. And so, you not to OPSEC you, but you are within a reasonable distance of the Orlando area. And so you said, look, I'll meet you. You tell me what day, you tell me where you'll be, and I'll figure it out. And not only did you come, but your absolutely adorable family joined. And everyone was extremely compliant. I don't mean that in a nasty way, but, Liss family, you do what you need to do, and we'll just be along for the ride. It was wonderful, and I really treasured that time together. You also got our kids gifts, which was absolutely out of bounds and unnecessary.
It was a birthday. Come on.
Well, still, it was the mark of a good man who's been raised right. So it was very kind of you, and we had a really good time together. And it was only that one day, but it was a day in Animal Kingdom that I really enjoyed. It was actually, if I recall correctly, it was the Liss family's first full day at Disney World. I think we had flown the day before. And it was your daughter's first day at Disney ever, wasn't it, or something like that?
It was, yeah. She was it was in January or so she would have only been three-ish months.
Mm-hmm.
So that was very interesting to figure
that out.
It was
aggressive. It was aggressive.
You guys even watched her for a bit while we rode Dinosaur. I remember that.
Yeah, well, so it seemed like the least we could do was, push her around in the stroller. I mean, she was, at that point anyway, she was extremely, easy baby, as most of them are.
I'll tell you what, Disney's way easier with a baby that's stuck to a stroller than one that does have the ability to walk around, because we went a few months ago now, I think like October, November, and that was quite the experience now that she can walk and has a tighter schedule and, naps and all these things. That was a very interesting day, but we went to Magic Kingdom for that.
It's funny you say that. When Aaron and I had a dear friend's wedding that was not in the Orlando area, but was in Florida, want to say it was in the Jupiter area, but I might have that wrong. And what we ended up doing was, I think we flew into like Fort Lauderdale or something, and then I forget exactly where we flew into, but we rented a car and drove to Disney and did like 2 or 3 nights in Disney. And Declan at the time was like 18 months old, so this is around your daughter's age, and we are, and it sounds like you guys are the same, but we are of the parenting style that sleep was paramount and you do not screw with the sleep schedule. It does not happen. Now, that can be frustrating for people who are not that way. There's some people that are like, well, the baby will sleep when it's tired. And that's fine, but that's not how we handled it. Yeah, see, that's not how we handled things. And so anyways, so I have a picture somewhere. I don't think I would be able to dig it up during our conversation, but if we want, we can put it in the show notes. I have a picture somewhere of us at the Hall of Presidents, is that right, in Magic Kingdom? I think
so.
Which is a very well air-conditioned, generally not obscenely loud queue area. And I'm just sitting on the floor with, I think it was like a nursing, like don't look at your wife's bits kind of nursing, whatever, shield. I can't think of the term for it, but you know what I'm saying. And I have that like draped over Declan, if memory serves. And I'm holding up my phone, not in his ear, but, next to his ear to get his, familiar water noise that his white noise that he's used to hearing. And he took like a 20-30 minute nap on me, if I remember right, and it was adorable. I love that photo, even though it was, at the time, it was not fun. I love the photo looking back on it, because I thought it was absolutely adorable.
Yes, nap time is vital, and they just changed up her nap schedule at school, so we've graduated from 2 naps to 1 nap. And so
that actually changes everything, because then you have a lot more time to get junk done.
Yes. So we're still I think she's still trying to figure that out. Like, am I supposed to sleep for 2 hours now? I don't quite get it. So we're getting acclimated to that. But they just kind of sent an email one day. They're like, she's only had 1 nap today. We're moving on. I'm like, oh, gosh.
I'm sorry, what?
A little heads up. There's nothing I guess we really could have done. So I guess it makes sense. But it was very interesting. And now she's basically done with milk. In all facets. We left formula a bit ago, and now milk's over. So, besides just drinking milk normally, like
all good things, making progress.
Yes, making lots of progress. She loves French fries. That's
who doesn't? Oh,
yeah,
my word.
It's pretty. She likes them quite a bit. I remember. So I did do the thing. I wore the band's T-shirt to the band's concert. I wore my ATP shirt to Disney simply because I figured it would be easy to find me, like, out of a crowd.
Yeah,
I was like, this works. We meet right there in the dinosaur area of Animal Kingdom. Not even 5 minutes after meeting for the very first time, someone walks by and was like, M1, whatever chip it is, I think it was the Ultra. Right. Like, that's a cool shirt. It's a cool computer. And you're just standing there. And we're both dumbfounded that someone recognized the chip.
Yep. It was amazing.
Gosh. But you're there.
It was a great
so
moment.
funny. It's just, that was great.
Yeah. And Aaron loves when this happens in both the literal and the air quotes kind of way, because then, she has ammunition to make fun of me for a while. And it also kind of is, it's, even though this has been a thing for us, for our family, for over 10 years, it still kind of makes her go, what is my life? Like both as in Casey and Aaron, what is our lives, I guess I should say. And it's just hilarious to watch. But yeah, it was very funny to have somebody recognize the shirt. And maybe, to your point, maybe it's just they put together what the chip part of it was, and they had no idea that it's an ATP shirt. But,
maybe. But it was the M1 Max variant because of my name, and I'm just like, you really got to know the chip if you're if it's spelled out that way. It was so weird. But I listened to the episode, and we had also just bought but hadn't received our iPhone 14 Pros, and I was getting a Pro Max. And then I did the not normal thing for me and upgraded the following year. And it turns out I both should have and shouldn't have done that, because I was let go from my job like a month later, and was like, ooh, probably shouldn't have spent this much money right there. But I'm glad because of some of the features that tie into the Apple Vision Pro. But Casey, you upgraded as well per your job, essentially, but you got the big phone. You joined the right
I did the unthinkable.
club.
I did the unthinkable. I've now got. Actually, I don't even know where I put it. Come to think of it, I thought it was right here. It's somewhere else. I don't know where it went. That's funny. But anyways, I got the Mutant Enormous phone. You know what? I think it might be on the back porch. But anyways, I got the Mutant Enormous phone, and I mostly like it. Not only did I, well, here's the thing. God help me if Mike Hurley ever listens to this, but Mike has been, he has been the probably lead cheerleader for the, what was it, Plus Club originally, and now it's, Max Life or Max Club or what have you. And not only that, but he is a devout pop socket person. And now, not only do I have a Mutant Enormous phone, but I have to put a stupid pop socket on the back because it's too big to hold otherwise. So I actually, for the most part, I do like it. If I were able to, the reason I got it was for the 5X zoom because, once you have kids, particularly kids in school, doing school things and plays and things like that, you really want to have as big a phone or as big a zoom, as big a throw or whatever as you can. And so that's why I got it. And I do like the screen real estate. The battery life hasn't been as earth-shatteringly good / better as I was led to believe. Like, it's better, but it's not night and day better. But that extra lens, that 5X lens, is what really brought me to it on the 15 Pro. And I've been thinking on and off since I got it. If I could get the 5X zoom on the on the 15 Pro, not the if it came down, or excuse me, I guess the 16. If it came and went, and it was no longer just the 16 Pro Max, it was also available in the 16 Pro. Would I go back to a 16 Pro? I'm leaning toward yes, but it's not as absolutely, not as devout a feeling as I would have expected. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. I do love the camera though. I love having the extra zoom. I do like having the extra screen real estate. So yeah, I'm at least for now, I'm a convert, and it pains me to admit it. Hashtag Mike was right.
The right side of history. It's, I think some of the changes there though, the battery life has been pretty improved for the last probably 2 iterations of the iPhone.
Yeah.
I think probably around the 12 or 13, there was a big gain in battery life, it felt like. So I think that doesn't go as far now at the 15, because the last couple of years you've had really solid battery life. And then also the titanium introduction this year, I think makes the Max more or easier
it's much more palatable.
Swallow. Yeah, palatable. Because it's just not as heavy anymore. It is titanium all the way. And I mean, I guess
that does make titanium. A huge difference, because my 14 Pro, not Max, either feels like it weighs the same, if not more, than the 15 Pro Max. It's absurd how much lighter the new phones are. Yeah. It's really quite impressive.
It's awesome. Maybe they should build a Vision Pro out of titanium.
Yeah, we should look into that. I'm sure that won't be expensive at all. No. But speaking of things that are light and perhaps even lighter than air, you've got some personal news to share, which I am very, very annoyed and jealous of. What's going on with you?
Well, I'm a pilot. I have a license now that says I can fly little drones all over the place. I did the Part 107 small unmanned aircraft certification with the FAA. And, that's something you've talked about doing and getting, and you fly your drones and take pictures and things like that. And so I took the recommended course that seems to be the hotness is the Pilot Institute one. Yeah. And I forget.
Yeah, that's the one I was planning to do if and when I ever get around to it.
It's a great course, incredibly thorough. There's a rooster just doesn't understand that the sun is already up. I don't know if you can hear it. It's so loud.
I can't on my end.
Oh my gosh. Anyway, I took this course, and by God, I know how to fly a plane. That's for sure. It is so the course is prepared because the test is obviously designed by the FAA, and it can cover drones and fixed wing aircraft, like model planes that fly like model planes. So you essentially have to know how planes work and fly and all of this stuff, but it covers everything from weather conditions, map readings, reading charts with, airspace information in it. It's like flying a plane 101 kind of, which was way more extensive than I thought it was going to be. So much information, way more dense than I thought, and it was all good. And the practice tests are great, and the instructor's cool, all this stuff. They really want you to succeed, and you do. But it's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. Even just reading sectionals, the charts that pilots use, that seems like it would be a lot to me. And that's just one small portion of it, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, it is. There's all these, different types of fog and weather conditions and rules, like how close to the clouds you're allowed to fly. Basically, I've learned that all of the flying with my drone I've done up to this point has been illegal.
Neat. That's fun.
It falls under, that would fall under the hobbyist branch, which then exempts you from a lot of these rules. But for example, I watch anything Casey Neistat does. He has been investigated by the FAA before, but it's amazing that he had, at least to our public knowledge, hasn't been fined out the wazoo for the stuff that he's doing with drones in New York and all over the place. It's crazy how strict these rules are, and it feels like I've learned that I think we both have the same. I have a Mini 2.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So
I'm pretty sure that's what it is. I'm almost certain, because then the Mini 3 came out that added front-back accident avoidance or obstacle avoidance, if I remember right. And I do not have that. I only have down obstacle avoidance. So yes. I think we're saying the same thing.
I think so. So there's a new standard for drones now, basically I forget the term for it, but it basically is like a license plate for drones. And this is outside of, you have to register the drone with the FAA and put the number on the drone somewhere. This is like it broadcasts a radio signal that says, hello, I am here, I am this drone. Well, that's not built into the drones that you and I have, and it's only in up to basically certain iterations going forward. And so I think it's in March here. Like if you fly that and you're a Part 107, certified whatever, it's illegal, and you basically have to attach a beacon to it that then broadcasts this signal, and that beacon has to be registered with the FAA. So there's all this, and that also broadcasts your position, like where you are personally. And so anyone can just pull these apps up and see where people are. So there's like a huge, somewhat privacy implication there of,
right.
It's saying where I am, not necessarily just where the drone is. But that's interesting. I've learned that flying at nighttime is not as difficult as I would have thought as far as rules and regulation goes. Basically, taking that course qualifies you. You just have to follow certain rules in the air. I thought flying at night would be a whole separate certification, essentially, but it all falls in. So all that to say, I can fly a drone now. And what's really cool is once you take the test and you pass it, you don't have to take it again. You just have to take recurrent training every few years. And it's not a test, and it's free, and it's online. So
would you recommend it for someone who isn't looking to make, like, the reason I wanted to get a 107 was just because my understanding is the FAA, strictly speaking, is within their rights to, like, yell at me for things I post on Instagram. Even though I'm not actively, like, monetizing Instagram, I'm not selling ads on these posts or anything like that. Like, if you read the letter of the law, I think it is within their right to get angry at me, even though the likelihood of it is almost nil. And so I'm not looking to, like, do real estate stuff. I'm not looking to use it in the course of my jobby job or anything like that. I don't plan on making YouTube videos with it or anything along those lines. But that was my thought was, why don't I do this on the up and up? But if it adds nothing but restrictions and complications, I wonder if maybe that juice ain't worth the squeeze.
I think under just the hobbyist, flying it as a hobbyist, which is what you primarily are doing, you're flying it over parks and things, you're just getting really cool pictures and things, I think you're good. Like, and it really falls, I think it becomes valuable when you're trying to make money off of it.
Right.
Which is part of, we did it for work so that we could film job sites and construction projects and things like that. And so we wanted, obviously, to be compliant with the FAA in that way and just be on the up and up, like you said. And that's where it comes in now, and that's purely for work. And but with that, I can fly certain distances and things more so legally, within the space. But if you're just flying it for fun, just fly it for fun. I don't think getting this particular license would be worth it in that context. I assume you have to get a radio thing still, but again, I think, like, Casey Neistat obviously is more of a focus for the FAA than Casey Liss, because Casey's very public. He is making money off of all of his drone shots in one way or another because it's part of his product. But you're just taking a picture of a park, and people aren't in your pictures either. So I think you're really generally good. As long as you just practice common sense when flying the thing, I think you're going to be safe and all good. And the drones that you can buy off the shelf today are even more so advanced at keeping things safe. And I mean, it comes down to the person flying the thing is really what it's ultimately comes down to. And Casey, you're a smart guy. You practice common sense when you're flying. You're not out there doing crazy, dangerous things.
Yep. No, and I mean, even silly things like I used to go to the local Cars and Coffee, which is basically all the car nerds would bring whatever they drive. You know, it can be a piece of junk or it could be something nice, and they would go to a parking lot. This still happens, but the place within the Richmond area, which is where I am, it moved to it was one of those, like, it's across town and it's not that bad to get there, but ugh. You know what I mean? It's like one of those just sort of things. And so I haven't been in probably a year or two. But anyways, but occasionally I would go, but back when it was nearer to me, and occasionally I would bring the drone. And one of the regulations, as far as I was aware, was you're not supposed to fly over people. And I would never do that. You know, I would keep off to the side and get, like, you know, side shots. I wouldn't be dry or flying over people or anything like that. But meanwhile, the 2 or 3 other people that had drones and were flying at the time were like, they weren't dive bombing, but you know what I mean? They're like,
over the people,
50 feet up, right over people and so on and so forth. And I'm just like, my goodness, you're the reasons that all of this is getting regulated so heavily, because something's going to happen and they're going to look at you being an idiot. And that's why.
It is. You can fly over people if you're moving in a straight line. Like, you can't hover, essentially, is kind of the real rule, is you can't just
interesting. Okay.
I mean, don't fly over people. But another, like, crazy rule is you can't fly over moving vehicles. So, you can't fly over the road or a job site or anything. Like, everything has to be still, and people have to be undercover and things like that. But, like, if I was riding my bike at the park, you can't fly your drone over me and follow me on the bike. You just basically stay away from people directly above them for more than just passing over them, and you should be good. And again, I think the hobbyist thing covers you pretty well there. It's more when you start making money off of it. And I mean, again, back to the common sense. I don't want to fly this over people, because if that fell,
exactly.
I mean, it's going to hurt. These drones are so small. I mean, it technically could lacerate your skin. I mean, it's just a plastic propeller again.
No, I mean, I cut myself once trying to do a midair catch, like a deliberate midair catch.
Yeah,
and I did a bad job of it, and I cut myself. I mean, it wasn't like, none of these cuts were deep, but I sliced myself up pretty good. I had like 4 or 5, little teeny cuts. But even, I mean, our drones are 249 grams. Like, because of particulars of the law, they have to be under 250 grams, which is not that heavy. I'm saying with the battery, the whole rigmarole, but 250 grams falling from 400 feet or thereabouts, that would hurt. Yeah. So, and that's leaving aside the propellers, which you had mentioned, Max. Like, that can also hurt. So, yeah, just don't be a moron is usually a good strategy for life.
Common sense, fly safe. But I'm a pilot now, according to the FAA, which is,
you are very fancy.
The testing facility was actually at the local airport, about 10 minutes from the house, and it just so happens, they have these sites scattered all over the place. I'm sure I could have gone to a strip mall and taken it, but I happened to be close enough to the airport. So, like, took it at the airport, felt, I'm looking at charts. I'm like, oh my gosh, am I a pilot? I don't know. I don't feel like one, but
right.
I technically am. I told Abby that this morning. I'm like, you're married to a pilot. And she's like, huh.
How's that feel?
I don't know about that. I'm like, okay, well, there you go. You're married to a pilot now, so
letter of the law says that's the rule. That's the rule. You are now a pilot.
But, I may have a license for work, theoretically, but you actually did a thing, released a thing. You made an app, Casey.
I did.
Callsheet.
Yes, that's exactly it. That was, as is tradition, I had a terrible internal code name, if you will, for the beginning, which was film lookup. Put it together, you got lookup. But yeah, it's actually called Callsheet. This is an app on the iOS App Store, and the elevator tour or the elevator pitch of it is, hey, imagine the IMDb app, the Internet Movie Database app, which has just a treasure trove of information. Well, imagine that app but done by someone who actually respects the users of that app. There's no pop-ups. There's no, hey, would you log in? There's no, hey, why don't you go to Amazon, which owns IMDb, and buy stuff. It's all just straightforward, fast, and I like to think, clever in a handful of ways. And, we've been going long, just catching up, so we don't need to belabor it. But suffice to say, if you are someone who is interested in movies or television shows or actors, I definitely recommend checking it out on the iOS App Store. And you get a series, you get like 20, I believe it is, free searches where you can search, for actors or movies or whatnot 20 times before I ask you to pay. And then if you like the app, which you will because it's great, then you'll pay either $1 a month or I believe it's $9
$9 a year.
Or you can choose to pay me more if you want to be super awesome, but it's not compulsory. And I think it's pretty clever. A couple of the features that I'm really proud of is as you're looking at like a TV episode or a movie, it shows all the actors, and as you're scrolling through the list, it'll say what their ages were at the time of release. So one of the things I always ask myself, and I don't think I'm alone, is, okay, I'm watching Ocean's 11. How old was Julia Roberts? And how old was George Clooney when Ocean's 11 came out? And just as you're scrolling and looking at the cast list, it's right there, right in front of you, which I really like that feature. There's another one for TV particularly. I do what I call spoiler protection, which is to say, in the canonical example of this that I've said several times in the past, is that when Watchmen, the miniseries, came out, I think it was right before the world ended, if memory serves, so it was like the end of 2019. There's like, I won't spoil it, but there was a character who had two roles. Like, we met the character as one role, and then it turns out that they were also a secret superhero. Have you seen that, Max? Have you seen Watchmen?
I have not. I have read the comic, though. So
okay.
I'm familiar with the source material.
Yeah, okay. So for those of you who are familiar, I'm not going to spoil it, but we don't realize who Dr. Manhattan is at first, right? Mm-hmm. And we meet Dr. Manhattan as a regular member of the cast before we realize, oh, that's Dr. Manhattan. Well, anyways, so I was watching the show, and at the time, Callsheet wasn't a thing, and so I looked at IMDb, and one of the people on the show was credited as, so-and-so, the character I was familiar with, / Dr. Manhattan. So, well, son of a gun, I didn't know that yet. So, yeah. It was infuriating. And so one of the things that Callsheet does is, optionally, you can say, I don't want to see the names of cast members, or the characters' names when I'm looking at a TV show. Or another great example is, I don't want to see how many episodes these actors were in. Because what if they're only in one episode and you thought that they were the star of the series? Well, apparently they're killed off immediately, or whatever the case may be. You can choose to hide thumbnails. You can choose to hide episode titles. I feel like there's something else in there, but yeah. So it's a really great way to keep yourself from being spoiled on a show that maybe you're really invested in. And Watchmen is worth your time. It's only like 8 or 9 episodes, and they're about an hour each, and it's one of my favorite TV shows of all time. So that's just one example, but I like to think Callsheet's pretty good, and you can check it out on the App Store.
You can. You should. I use it almost every time we watch something. It's either, how old was this person when they did a thing, or who are, what were they in? This person looks familiar. Let's, drill into that. Oh, they were in this movie. That's where I know them from. All great stuff. Super clean. Super nice. A+ work, Casey.
Oh, thank you.
I
appreciate it.
And the app icon, it's beautiful. I love it so much.
Yeah, well, the clapperboard one, which is the default one,
yes.
That was done by my dear friend Jelly, who you would perhaps know as the author of the iPhone app GIF Wrapped, which is, if you're someone like me who takes animated GIFs very seriously, GIF Wrapped lets you build a repository of your favorite reaction GIFs and, send them very easily and so on and so forth. And I had said to Jelly, look, this is what I think I want the app icon to look like. And I gave a truly heinous and hideous rendition of the app icon to him. And because he is a trained artist, among many other talents, he was able to put it together and make it look actually really good. And then my other friend, Steve Rayner, who is local, Jelly is Australian, so it's very not local, but Steve is local, and he did a bunch of alternative app icons that if you pay up, then you can choose between those. There's like a film reel. I feel like there's a few others. I forget. I haven't looked at that code in a long time, but there's a bunch of other options in there in various colors and so on and so forth. So yeah, check it out. Callsheet. It's pretty good. But the problem with Callsheet though is I gotta bring it to a new platform. And one of the things and one of the things I'm a little worried about is that platform tends to want complete circle icons, and the clapperboard is not going to look great as a circle. So I got to work with Jelly and figure out, how can we make this fit in a circular world. And that platform obviously is the Apple Vision Pro, baby. I've got it in hand. I picked it up Friday morning at my local Apple store. Went to New York with it, which was informative in a lot of ways.
You traveled with it. I curious. I did. If you were going to be bold enough to take this.
I used it on the train, baby.
Okay.
Yeah, I used it on the train. It's really terrible. Like between my laptop, my iPad, and this thing, I was walking around with a really kind of embarrassing amounts of technology on my back or in my backpack. Like, I feel safe in New York for the most part, but it was a dubious choice to bring all of this through the streets of Manhattan. But
it's a lot to walk around with.
It is. Yeah, I mean, it was a lot of money, but that's all right. That's why there's insurance, I guess. I don't know. But anyways, yes, I went to New York to surprise my dear friend Mike Hurley, who is the co-host of one of my other podcasts, which is called Analog. And I surprised him in New York. He was in town from London buying his own Vision Pro. And he was completely dumbfounded to see me, which was amazing. And I did try to use the Vision Pro on the train on the way up, and that didn't work because I'm an idiot, and we can explore that if you're interested, Max. Yes. But then I tried it again on the way down, and it did work because I realized the error in my ways. I looked like a moron, but nevertheless, surprisingly few people seemed to even notice I had the thing on, much less do like a, what? I think only one person looked at me that I noticed anyway and was like, what is this idiot? But it was nice. And once I got it working appropriately, it was really nice. But I mean, how do you want to unpack this? Do you want to go through history? Do you want to go through anything else? Or do you want me to just dive in and start talking about it? Or you had a demo, right?
I did. So I did do the demo opening weekend. But I'm curious first, because I just don't know the answer for you. What is your history with VR or AR? Have you done a lot of stuff? Have you tried it a lot before? Or is this your first experience with a headset?
So when I was like 10, I begged my parents to do a VR birthday party. I think this was when we were living in Austin, Texas. And so this would have been in the early 90s, like 90, 91, 92, somewhere in that neck of the woods. Maybe I have the timing a little off, but it was a long time ago. And we did do a VR thing with my friends, and the headset that you put on weighed 800,000 pounds, and you had to stand in like a little podium or on a little platform that had like a railing all around it in a circle because they didn't want you to walk around with it. It was a mess. I think it was all polygons. I don't think there was any texture whatsoever, if memory serves. I mean, this was the early 90s. But that's not what you're actually asking. What you're actually asking is, have I used any modern stuff? I did spend literally a minute in a Meta Quest 2, which has since been bequeathed to me because the owner of the Meta Quest 2 has now gotten either the 3 or the 3 Pro. I'm very wishy-washy on their model.
There's
names.
a 3, and then there is
maybe
a
that's
Pro, but the Pro is like the $1,500 one, and the 3 is like the $500 one.
I think it was the 3. I actually haven't seen it. It's just what my friend has told me, but they did give us the 2 because they said they were never going to do anything with it, and I haven't actually had the time to set it up yet, which is unfortunate, but I did spend about a minute in it, I don't know, a few months ago, and it was cool and impressive. I think I was riding a roller coaster for a minute, and it was, it made me feel like I was on a roller coaster. But that's the extent of my VR experience. And with regard to AR, I mean, I can't even think of anything in particular. Like I've used Skyview or whatever that app is that, you point it at the night sky and it shows you where constellations are. But that's about the extent of it to the best of my recollection. Now, before we got on the phone together, got on Discord together today, we briefly had a FaceTime, which we'll probably talk about in a little while. Yeah. And I noticed that you had some sort of controllers behind you. So I presume, and given your predilection for video games, I presume you have quite a bit of history with VR.
Yeah, I own and used quite a bit of VR. I remember the first time I used VR was I was walking around campus at UCF. From the lab that I taught as a TA, I was kind of in this engineering business building, and we were going through the atrium, and they had just had this Vive set up there where you could just
Mm-hmm.
do a demo. And so I stood there, and there was a whale that swam by me and all this stuff. That was my first time with VR, and that was like probably roughly 2015. It was also around the time that I saw someone using Google Glass in the building, which I thought was really
yes.
cool.
I have used one very, very briefly, and I
Okay.
remember it being neat. This was a long time ago. I remember it being neat, but not for me. But, I mean, this was very different technology.
I was just like, that seems so cool. I looked it up yesterday. They stopped selling the Google Glass just last year.
Really?
Yeah, they've had 2 iterations for Enterprise.
I did not know that.
Yeah, they updated it last in 2019, and they stopped selling it last March, which...
That is news to me.
Yeah, I totally caught me off guard. I mean, not surprising that Google killed a product. I'm just surprised this one lasted longer than expected.
Agreed.
But then I bought a PlayStation VR 1 back in 2016. I had tried the Oculus Quest and the Rift in 2019 at a convention. My friend had a Vive 2, all this stuff. I used to work at a company that did a lot of VR training and things like that with haptic feedback gloves and all this sort of stuff. And then I have a PSVR 2 that I bought last year. So I've been into VR since I first tried it at 2015. And actually talking, you mentioning your birthday, I remembered that Disney Quest used to have VR demo games things where you would fly on a magic carpet. And so like that's what that used to look like, these huge, sticking 2 feet out in front of your face kind of VR headsets pumping in.
Yep.
It's
Mm-hmm.
we've come a long, long way from all that stuff. But I've played and used it all quite extensively. I have a Quest 2 in the house that I've played quite a bit with. And so when Apple publicly announced that they were entering this space, I'm obviously super jazzed because it's a thing that I've been, shouting from the rooftops. VR is great. Right. AR is great. Mm-hmm. And now we get to see Apple go into that. And so, yeah, I was able to do a demo. There was, I guess slight correction for John off the most recent episode of ATP, 573, Look at It Harder, which is great. He said that he couldn't schedule a demo for the opening weekend, and it was because you could only schedule a demo opening weekend in person. So you had to go to the store, schedule the appointment, and then I think they were anticipating a bigger rush.
Whoopsies.
Because when I went there, I could have gotten a demo that day at 11, but I waited till Saturday because that was when we kind of were originally planning to do it. And but then Abby went with me, and they offered her a demo too, like just a walk-in at that point. And this is day after launch. So I don't think it was as big of a rush as they anticipated. No one had bought one at my Apple store when I went in to schedule an appointment, and that was about 9:30 in the morning.
Oh, wow.
And as I had left, I did see someone with the biggest Apple bag I've ever seen, which indicated to me there was a Vision Pro in the bag. And I talked to them for a little bit, and they're apparently a developer research type work. They didn't seem to have a very specific use case in mind, so I think they were more using their job to justify buying the toy. They didn't have they didn't really share with me a specific vision for what they were going to develop with it. And so apparently, according to an Apple Store employee, someone did walk in, try it, and then just buy it right there, which indicated to me there was enough stock in the back for them to assemble one on the spot. Now, I don't know how many people are really walking into the Altamont Mall ready to drop $4,000. I feel like you're going in there to spend $4,000. It's not as spontaneous as it sounded, but
for sure.
Maybe some people are crazy like that. I don't know. But anyway, I did do the demo, 30-minute demo, which seems to be the same as the press demo. And
I don't think it's exactly the same, but I think the broad strokes are the same or very similar.
Yes, I think so. It's close.
It's very close.
It is certainly tailored to be as much pop to get you to want to buy one, which makes sense. It's in the store environment, but also to get you through it as quickly as possible. It's about a 25-minute demo in my experience. And it's something. It's interesting to use it in a store versus where you're using it, which is in your home or on a train, generally by yourself, but instead be into a loud Apple store that's very busy and full of people not only trying the Vision Pro, but also buying iPhones and Macs and all the other stuff that people buy at an Apple store. So it's not the most ideal environment, I think, to use one, but it is the only way for folks en masse to try one, and I definitely think people should try one before they buy one, if they're even in.
Yeah.
I think people should try it in general just to understand the product better.
Agreed.
And since it's free, I mean, all you're spending is your time, which I think 25 minutes worth it in this particular case. But like Abby has no interest in trying it because she told me, "Oh, it's just VR. I know what VR is like." And she's really hung up on the cost, and I'm not even trying to buy one. I'm just trying to explore the future of this technology. But she's like, it's way too much money, so I'm not interested in trying it, which I think is an interesting perspective because
yeah, definitely. And I get it. I mean,
the price is keeping people back, which it keeps me away from it.
It's an absolutely absurd amount of money, and I did it because of my job. And without question, I will enjoy using this in many ways that are not my job. But the reason I got it is because my job is to not only write things like Callsheet, but to talk about things like the Vision Pro. And so it seemed irresponsible, as silly as that sounds. It seemed irresponsible for me not to spend an irresponsible amount of money on this thing. But but nevertheless, that's why I did it. And I think if it was just for the purposes of, I think this is cool, it would be a much harder sell. That being said, it is really freaking cool.
It is cool. And I want to... Has Erin tried it? I assume she has.
She actually hasn't had the chance yet.
Okay.
It's because I was gone for 3 days.
Oh, that's right.
I just haven't had the chance. We had a slammed weekend this past weekend as we record. Then I left Monday morning, came back Wednesday night, immediately recorded ATP, and then Thursday morning and during the day we had some stuff going on. And Thursday night, I forget something was going on, but we just haven't had the chance yet. I suspect she will in the next few days. She seems kind of blasé about it in no small part because of the price. I think, like you said about Abby, it's absurd how expensive it is. I think though, so we did have some friends over, one of whom is like a super Apple nerd, and they wanted to try it, and Erin was like, yeah, go ahead, I'll try it another time. And they were very impressed by it. They're not about to spend $3,500 on it, but they were extremely impressed by it. And I think for Erin, what will probably sell her on it to a degree, not to the point of like, oh, I would like one for myself, please. But, what will get her to say, yeah, that's cool. I think there's a few things. Disney Plus has its own bespoke environments that you can consume media in. And this has been talked about a lot, but you can go to the Avengers Tower and watch a movie or a show in Disney Plus. You can go to the Disney Theater. You can go to Tatooine, in Star Wars, where you can see the binary stars and you're sitting on like a land speeder or whatever. And there's one other one I'm forgetting what it is now.
Scare Floor?
Yes, thank you. The Monsters Inc. Scare Floor. Those only work within Disney Plus, which is really too bad. A lot of people have been saying the same thing, but I really wish Disney Plus could vend these environments to the system so you could do anything you want in the Scare Floor or what have you.
Why not work in the Scare Floor?
Exactly. But yeah, I think her being a very big Star Wars fan, bigger than me even, I think her being sitting on the speeder in Tatooine, I think would really hammer it home. The 3D video on it, now there's two different flavors of what I think you can broadly classify as 3D video. There's things like The Avengers, which has been remastered for 3D, or some some movies like Avatar were filmed in 3D.
Right.
But I haven't tried Avatar, but at least with like Avengers and things like that, like I did watch the whole of Black Panther across many different sittings. You're still getting a rectangular viewport. It's just that viewport has depth to it, right? And that viewport is probably the size, like probably 2 to 3 times the size of an average home TV, however many inches that might be. Right. That's cool and impressive, and the 3D looks great. And I say that as someone who does not care for 3D movies. Like, I would choose to watch movies in 3D on the Vision Pro rather than 2D if I could, because you're not really losing fidelity like you do in a theater. And even though it is a bit of a gimmick, it looks great. That's the one flavor of 3D. And then separately, there's what Apple is calling immersive. And oh my word, that stuff is freaking nuts. So there are a couple examples that you've probably experienced, Max, and cut me off whenever you're ready. But during the demo, they had me watch, or they have like a sizzle reel, if you will, of a bunch of immersive things. You see kids playing soccer on a field, I think in South Africa. You see rhinos approaching the camera.
Yes,
you see a woman doing a tightrope walk high up in a fjord, or in a fjord in Norway or Sweden or what have you. Then there's Alicia Keys, as the aforementioned Mike Hurley has said to me. There's Alicia Keys singing at you. You're in a studio and she's looking directly into the camera and singing and whatnot. But the key to all of these immersive experiences is there's not a rectangular viewport like the movie, like Wakanda Forever had. As you twist your head about, you are looking at a different portion of the scene in which you are in. They're doing a full, maybe not 360 degree, but at least 180 degree capture of what is happening at that moment, presumably with, bespoke and special 3D cameras and so on and so forth, or immersive cameras. I would love to hear your thoughts in a moment, but for me, I saw this and was like, holy crap. I want this for everything, especially for sports. And I know you and I, you're probably a bigger F1 fan than I, but can you imagine being able to have an in-car view, but be able to look around? Like F1 does a phenomenal job of showing you, if you subscribe to F1 TV, of showing you everyone's cars, and then you can see telemetry, you can see where the cars are on the track, and they actually do have a very brief demo somewhere of what a F1 app could look like, where you're seeing the track in 3D. This is not real.
With
it's
the
all
cars
just a demo.
moving around on it and stuff.
But all of this immersive stuff, and you get to see in the sizzle reel, like soccer and baseball. Oh my gosh, I want this in my life. I want this everywhere in my life, and I want it immediately. And that, I think, would make Aaron go, okay, that's cool. And I'd like to pause here, but remind me after I get your thoughts. The other thing that I think would really sell it for is spatial video, but let's come back to that in a minute.
Yes.
What did you think about like the sizzle reel and immersive versus 3D and all that stuff?
The immersive video is definitely the highest quality immersive type video that I've ever seen. It reminds me a lot of a video game in the way of you are in that space.
That's a very good analogy. That's a really good analogy.
It's real life instead of a virtual, a video game.
Yep.
And those two serve very different purposes, but they both work. I think in particular, the Alicia Keys thing was unsettling just because she's like looking at you, but she's really looking at a camera. The animal stuff, though, I found extremely compelling. There was a shark swimming at you and in front of you with a person scuba diving, and then the rhinos just walking right up to you. I think that type of stuff, National Geographic documentaries, could you imagine an animal documentary, a Planet Earth style documentary filmed this way?
No, it would be incredible.
Mm-hmm. That's wild, and that's super neat. The 3D movies, now at the store, it was like a 20-30 second clip of the Super Mario Brothers movie.
Yeah, I did see that when I did my pickup. I've not seen it since, but when I did the pickup, I think that might be special for just the Apple Store. Vision Pros, but
they've got some sort of deal. They're pumping that one, which is surprising because I really would have thought it would have been Avatar: Way of Water, which is really what I wanted to see, because I did go to the theater to see that in 3D because James Cameron is very passionate about it and cares about the 3D impact and effect, and it's really good. So I did that, and it's cool. It was hard to hear, not because the pods or whatever don't sound good, but I'm in an Apple store, and it's just loud in there. And I wasn't really sure how to turn up the volume or where Control Center was and things, so it was just harder to hear. But to kind of remind myself of where we came from, to prepare for the show, I have a 3D TV, like a small 24-inch 3D TV. So I dug that out, and for the first time ever put in a 3D Blu-ray. I had Guardians of the Galaxy for some reason in 3D. Mm-hmm. And I watched that with the glasses, and the thing that everyone's talking about and is immediately true, the glasses just naturally dim the picture, and it doesn't look as bright or as vibrant, but in the Vision Pro, everything is at that color. Now, it's not, I guess, full color reproduction of the typical color space, but it still looks great, and you don't get that dimming effect. I even tried it with the PSVR 1. I also dug that thing out, and you can watch 3D Blu-rays in that, and that has the same advantage of the Vision Pro of not dimming it because you're not wearing glasses. It's the screen inside. But the resolution was so much lower than the, more than 4K pixels per eye or whatever that the Apple Vision Pro has. It looked a little grainy. Now, I think that actually worked to the PSVR 1's benefit because it's a movie, and so some grain seems fine on movies. In a game, you wouldn't want that. And that's, 7-year-old VR tech at this point. So there's a difference there. I would like to watch more than a 30-second clip in a store, and I think that's like the detriment of the store is it's all scripted and it's all at a clip, and you have no control really over this space you're in. And so you can't I think of it as the most personal media device I've ever used. In the store there, I could figure that out. But none of the media was mine, and that'll apply here to the pictures and photos and videos as well. But, I wasn't watching the movie that I wanted to watch. I wasn't watching an immersive experience necessarily. And I get it's a sizzle reel that I would want to watch. So I feel like there's some detachment between this device is so personal, but the way that you try it out is not personal.
Yeah, it's very
just
impersonal.
What's offered up. Like even the apps they asked you to use, like they weren't apps I would have tried. And I get they have promotional deals and they're just trying to show you things and all that stuff. So that is, I think the downside of the demo is you don't get to, and maybe it's because I've used VR before, so I got over the initial like, wow, this is really cool, I think faster than an average consumer might. So I was like, well, I would like to do this and this and this, but you've got to stick to the script. And even when I accidentally went off script, it was like, you got to get back, please go back. I was like, oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Oh, goodness.
Like I tried, they have you scroll through pictures, and unfamiliar with the sensitivity of a gesture, I like swiped through hundreds of photos and, across the reel at the bottom.
Whoopsies.
Just like, whoop. I was like, whoop. And they were like, please go back. We need you to, because the Apple Store employee has an iPad mini that can see what you see. But
right.
Abby told me they also have a script, essentially a teleprompter, that they are reading.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, she said she just saw the script. So they're just reading this, line by line. And so when you go off script, they obviously don't know what to do. I mean, they know what to do. They guide you back to where you need to be. But it's, the order of the photos is very particular. They're like, look at this picture and all the colors it reproduces. Wow, how cool is this picture? Now let's look at a panorama. And wow, don't you feel like you're standing there? Oh, now let's go to the spatial things. So it's very scripted. And with the device itself being so personal, I just wish I could do things on it. My stuff. I wish my things were on it. And that's, I think, what's difficult about sharing this device with other people too, because the guest mode is offering you up to, this is all of Casey's apps and Casey's photos. It's not my stuff. And maybe that works more for, say, a partner, but, because you have the same shared photos or anything like that. But if you give it to a buddy, it's like, well, I'm just looking at pictures of Casey's family, or this is Casey's movie. I don't really want to watch The Hunt for Red October right now. Casey, please put something else on. And
there's nothing else.
It's the only video he has on there. And so really what I want is to spend an hour with it in my own environment, but that's just not possible unless you buy the thing. And so it's an interesting dichotomy they have there going on. But movies and TV, very, very cool. I would like to watch more of it, please. I think, and what's really cool is they're doing the same thing that they did when, iTunes brought in 4K movies and stuff. Any movies that have 3D versions now on the Apple TV store, and you've purchased them, get added to your library at no additional cost, which I was really hoping for, because that just seems to be the right thing to do. So now, theoretically, you have a suite of 3D movies, assuming you've bought anything within the last 5-10 years.
Yeah, the only problem with that, though, and I haven't looked into this much, but I used to buy a lot of DVDs and Blu-rays, and I was a reasonably devout user of Movies Anywhere, where you get a code when you buy a physical disc, and you enable that in Movies Anywhere, and then Movies Anywhere lets you watch these in iTunes and other things like that. And my limited understanding, which I have not verified, is that you don't necessarily get an auto upgrade from 2D to 3D with a Movies Anywhere purchase or Movies Everywhere purchase, whatever it's called, or you have to remove it and re-add it or something. Again, you're going to want to look into this if this is relevant for you. But there was something odd about that, and for the life of me, I can't remember the specifics. But I don't think I have very many 3D movies in my collection in Apple's movie app, despite having a moderate sized collection in general. So I'm gonna at some point have to look into this and see what the deal is. But no, building on the spatial video stuff. So this is when you take a video with your phone or the Vision Pro and it's in 3D.
This is the killer feature, Casey.
Yep, it really is. And I think this is the thing that will most likely make Aaron say, oh, I see now. And what this is you can do this with a phone. It's pretty good. I haven't actually tried it with the Vision Pro itself, but my understanding is it's a little bit better. But what it lets you do is take, a 3D movie of what's happening in front of you. And I tell you what, even though the presentation's a little bit weird, you get kind of a squarish viewport, and it just kind of bleeds colors out of the outside. It's very hard to describe verbally, but I'm sure you can see a screenshot or perhaps even look at a YouTube review where you'll presumably see a 2D representation of it. But seeing your family members in full 3D is really freaking powerful. And even though the fidelity of these videos is not great, I think it's only 30 frames per second, it's only 1080p, it is really freaking powerful. Even for mundane stuff that isn't that important. I took a video of Michaela on the swings at a park over the weekend. And that's not oh my God, I'm going to cry every time I see this kind of powerful, but it's still oh my word. It's almost like I'm there. And you mentioned earlier, the panoramas, I actually think are very similar. It's not quite as good with the panoramas in my experience, because the fidelity isn't really enough in most cases to be blown up the size that they're blown up. But the feeling of presence you get from the panoramas and spatial video is astonishing. And I can absolutely imagine having a birthday or Christmas or Hanukkah or something, or some other big life event being filmed in this spatial video, as Apple calls it, this 3D video. And I can imagine how amazing that will be to look back on. It is extremely cool, especially to your point earlier, when it's your own family. I've seen video of other people's families very briefly, very short videos, and it is obviously not as striking, but it is something else when it's your own family. It is very cool.
Yeah, this is, as soon as it became a feature on the iPhone 15 Pro and Pro Max to shoot spatial video, it's funny, I remember I sent you a message, because it was the beta came out right before that trip to Disney, the second one, and I loaded the beta on my phone. I'm like, I'm taking spatial video at Disney, which is a very bold strategy to put a beta on your phone right before you go to a theme park all day.
It is.
But it worked out, and I have these spatial videos of Eloise on the carousel right there, or just taking a nap. And so I've been taking spatial video kind of ever since then. I put my phone on a tripod with a charger plugged into it, and I had it film Christmas this year in spatial video.
In spatial. That's cool.
So, and then I had the big camera to take pictures and stuff. And I'm this, I feel like this has to become a standard across the iPhone line. I think it can't be behind Pro phones. Yeah. It needs to get down to all the phones as quickly as possible, because I feel like this just has to become the way we take pictures and videos, and so that quality has to come up and the feature has to come down. It's a lot of stuff that they have to do, and I think it'll require a redesign of the camera mesa, as it were, over time. But
yeah,
the impact of something like a live photo is, I think, fairly pronounced over time, especially as you see things go on. and this is the new live photo essentially. And these videos, I remember we have some of Eloise's first steps, and like I'm thinking dad mode constantly with this. I'm so glad that while it wasn't probably the wisest financial decision to upgrade, I'm so glad that I have a phone capable of this, because even though I don't have the technology to view this properly right now, I'm building the collection almost kind of like panoramas on the iPhone. You know, they started with the iPhone 5-ish, somewhere in there, I think. And now there's a real way to view the panorama, you know, however many years later, 10 years later, I guess. But I think that's kind of the same thing that's applying here. This, you know, it's 1080p, it's 30 frames a second. You know, coming down from 4K 60 Dolby Vision to that is a huge downgrade in quality.
It is.
But the impact of being able to see the depth and be strangely transported back into this, I think, is going to be profound. And I want to build up that collection of stuff that I'll be able to use and share someday. Presumably, we'll all be able to look at the same picture at the same time with our tiny little Apple Vision glasses that we'll have someday, instead of it being so isolating with one person looking at one thing at a time. But yeah, the feature is the spatial videos and photos, and I get now why there's a dedicated capture button on the Apple Vision Pro.
Yep. Yeah, again, I haven't tried any captures with it quite yet, but it is really incredible. I cannot overstate how cool that is and how impressive it is. And I'm looking forward to, over time, collecting more and more of these spatial videos, which I think I will, for me anyway, probably still error, if you will, on the side of not making them spatial. I'll probably mostly take 2D videos, but
yeah,
perhaps like grab a 2D video of the thing that matters, but get like the ancillary stuff in 3D. And I think that's going to be incredibly powerful, and I'm going to be real thankful for it. Even at potato quality, I think it's going to be extremely cool to have.
It's adhering to that, you know, the old adage, the best camera is the one you have. And so just thinking of that in a 3D sense as well now, I guess, which is another way we're going to have to start thinking of pictures. It makes me want to, you know, it makes me wish Abby had, because she takes way more pictures of Eloise. She just has the presence of mind to take more photos of her with her phone all the time. And I'm like, man, if she was able to do this, or, you know, someday, I imagine, we'll be able to take those 3D type stills as well that the Vision Pro can do, but the phone can't do. Like, just to have that capability come, because I also don't want to be the dad, as much as I love playing with technology and toys, I don't want to be the dad at the birthday party wearing an Apple Vision Pro to take pictures.
Certainly
like
not.
That's unsettling. And I get that I can see other people, but they, even with the admittedly worse than I expected seeming eyesight feature, it definitely, people on the outside, I think, will not realize or will forget quickly that you can see and interact with them. Abby forgot it in our demo. She was like moving in front of me to take pictures. I'm like, Abby, you're like right here in front of this movie theater screen. Like, I can see you still. But to them, it looks like I can't see them because I'm wearing a headset, right? And that, I don't want to be that guy at a party, and I don't think you do either. I don't think most people want to be that person. And so getting this technology to the phone feels vital to me. And I wouldn't be surprised to see it come soon to the other phones.
I completely agree. The more that we have available to us in the device that is pretty much literally always on our person, the better off we'll be. And it's just a matter of having the presence of mind to record that kind of video or photo or what have you when the time is right. And we'll see how we do with that. You did get to experience like the immersive stuff, like the immersive environments like Mount Hood and whatnot, right?
I did. That's exactly where they took me, was Mount Hood. That looks great, feels great. It actually was nice to do because, again, I was in a busy Apple store. And so it was nice to like go away from that. And I could totally see this, you know, being, you know, when you want to go somewhere else from your inside office, maybe you just want to change of scenery, that could be very valuable. I didn't do anything there except have like Safari open. they didn't. I was kind of surprised they didn't have you play a movie in one of these environments.
They did for me. That's interesting. They were working with me a bit with regard to my demo. I had explained that, I'd been to a lab in New York actually and had several hours with the device. Okay. So I knew the basic gist of how things worked. And I said, but the media, like the sizzle reel stuff, I would love to see that. And that's what they did. And interestingly, as part of the demo, and I thought it was part of the script, but maybe not, they had me go to Mount Hood. It was either already set to, or they had me set it to dark. And then they had me play something on it. It was for literally 15 seconds. It might have been the Super Mario thing. I don't recall, but they had me there and you could see the reflection in the water on Mount Hood. And it was very, very impressive.
Yeah. That was not a part of my demo, which I was, in hindsight, leaving the store. I was like, oh, it's crazy. They didn't make me play like a movie on a movie theater size screen, in an environment, because I feel like that would sell, that's more leaning into the selling. So I'm kind of a little surprised at that, especially since that's like one of the big commercials and product features is like being able to watch I mean, it's being heavily pitched as a media device, which totally makes sense given what it can do. But I was a little surprised. But the environment itself, very neat. Obviously, everyone's saying they want more. They want developers to be able to contribute. And I think, unlike watch faces, I do think that could be a possibility, because
I sure hope so.
The tools obviously are there, right, to build one of these out and use them in your own app, whether that's a game or Disney Plus, like you mentioned before, the 4 different environments. Like, the tech is there and is clearly being encouraged, but it's just not in the system level yet. And maybe it's a toggle eventually where a developer needs to flip the switch to allow it to be shared with the environment, because maybe Disney for some reason doesn't want you doing your work on the scare floor. Maybe there's concerns about brand IP and what people are doing in these spaces, which gets into a weird legal area, I suppose, and what they're comfortable with or not. They probably don't want you doing all sorts of stuff in their Pixar animated universe. I don't know. I could see that, but I think it will be an option, and I certainly hope they make more and maybe go to more out of this world kind of places. Like, what if you were underwater in a really cool, like, I have the Apple TV set to all of the water screensavers.
Oh, interesting.
So it's like an aquarium on my TV all the time when I leave it on. And like, how cool would it be to work in the ocean of the Bahamas and there's just fish swimming around and by me?
Right. Yep.
And that gives it some sort of movement, and you could have some probably white noise of the water, kind of like that whooshy sound. And then you're working underwater, but you can breathe. I don't know. Maybe that's not how people want to work, but I think that would be kind of cool.
Yeah. I got to say, so I've gone in and out of the environments in the time I've used the Vision Pro, and I had it in the hotel room, and that was really cool. I didn't have a lot of time in the hotel room because I was visiting with friends, but the time I spent in my hotel room, it was very neat. On the desk area, I could set up like messages in Slack, and then over where the TV was in the hotel room, I can replace that with the video player in the Vision Pro. And all of these things, even if I were to walk into the bathroom, like, they all stay put phenomenally well. Like, these things are locked in place. It was very, very impressive. And so being able to do that is neat. But then you can also, if you want to, especially if you're stationary, you can just go to Mount Hood, or you can go to whatever that place is in Hawaii. You can go to the moon if you want. And this was exceptionally nice on the train, which maybe we should talk about that in a second. But I didn't do a lot of it because I wanted to see, for the purposes of the podcast, how many people are looking at me like I'm a crazy person. And it turns out it actually, I think only one person really did a double take, but didn't like stop walking past me. It wasn't one of those things where they stopped dead and looked at me, with their head tilted. They just did a double take as they were walking by, and that was that. Yeah, I probably would have stopped. And nevertheless, having the environments, the immersive environments, I briefly did put it on the train, and it did make the experience way nicer. Not that it was bad, without it, but it did make the experience much, much nicer. But if you'll permit me, I would like to retell my train story, which I thought was very funny. Which the moral, the punchline of the story is I'm an idiot. But on the way up to New York, I had put the Vision Pro on, and I thought, all right, well, everyone says that this is an airplane-only thing. That it has a travel mode. And allegedly, this is specifically for airplanes. It's not really meant for anything else. But it has a travel mode that you can turn on, and I thought I did that because I went into Control Center, and there's a little airplane icon for airplane mode. Oh wait, it's not airplane mode, I guess. It's travel mode. But I hit the little airplane icon. I thought I was good to go, and immediately the headset was like, tracking has failed. I can't do anything with this. All right, fine. Well, in the journey from Central Virginia to New York, when you leave Virginia and arrive in Washington, D.C., they actually switch locomotives because down here in Virginia, it's all diesel. Up there, it's all electric. And so you have about a half an hour where you're stationary. And so I got the Vision Pro back out, killed some time, watched Black Panther. And I thought, all right, maybe if we start stationary, maybe it'll do a better job of understanding, what's going on as I take off. And sure enough, I'm watching the movie, having the time of my life, and the train starts to leave. And suddenly the screen is staying put as I'm moving forward. So I went through the movie screen as the train took off, and immediately it was like, tracking's disabled, or the tracking has failed, blah, blah, blah. If you've seen the Casey Neistat review, it's very similar to what he had happen when he was on a subway. If you think of a New York City subway, if you're sitting, you're sitting with your back to one of the long edges of the subway. And so he had the screen in the center where people would stand. And as the subway took off, the screen stood still and, went zooming through the other train cars and never to be seen again. And that was a bummer. So I barely used it on the train on the way up. On the way back down, I thought, well, let me try it again. And I noticed in Control Center, whoa. What is this icon next to the airplane? And it's like a outline of the Vision Pro with waves, like ripples coming off of it. And I look at it, because that's how you interact with the stuff on the Vision Pro. And I look at it, and it says travel mode. Crap. I was so confused. I was so convinced that airplane meant travel. I wasn't even thinking about it. Airplane mode is the same airplane mode you're used to, you idiots. Of course it is. Why wouldn't it be? And so I turned on travel mode, and wouldn't you know, Max, it actually worked pretty well after that.
Very good.
So, in different, not like in the hotel room. In the hotel room, like I mentioned a moment ago, those windows are locked into place. Like you're not moving them an inch. When I was in travel mode, it was different insofar as the windows would jiggle a little bit here and there. It wasn't ridiculous, but they would jiggle about some, and it was noticeable but not frustrating. But I mean, it was so much better than the screen just flying through my body, or me flying through the screen, strictly speaking. It was much better than that, and so I actually used it for a fair bit on the ride home. The comfort, it got a little heavy after a while. I was using just the back band, the solo loop, or whatever they call it. I actually haven't even opened the dual band because for the amount of time I've spent using this thing, the back band, the solo whatever, is actually just fine in my case. Sometimes you got to tweak it a little bit, but I find it perfectly serviceable. And for the most part, I don't really notice the comfort too much. But the most I've had this on is like a couple of hours maybe on the train. So it wasn't, like a 6-hour day or anything like that.
Right.
But one of the things we haven't talked about yet, and they don't show you in the demo, is Mac Virtual Display.
Yes.
So
this is what I'm dying to try, man.
it's you're gonna have to come to Richmond, unfortunately, but it is amazing. So I did a lot of this in the hotel room because I roll with a 14-inch MacBook Pro. I love this computer. It's a phenomenal computer. And I got the 14-inch deliberately because I do carry it often enough that I didn't want like a 16-inch behemoth. But there's not an overabundance of real estate on my 14-inch MacBook Pro, and it would be nice to have more, especially because I like to at least once a week go to a library or go to a Wegmans or a Publix, if to put it in Max's language, and I like to go and work. And leaving aside the social stigma of having this ridiculous contraption on your face, you can suck in your Mac's display as a 4K display in the Vision OS world. And then you can pepper around that, if you so choose, Vision OS apps like Slack or Messages or Safari or whatever the case may be. And suddenly you have this completely spatial workspace. Now, the one bad side is, unless you set it up such that everything is basically microscopic, you're going to be moving your head around. Like, you're going to move your head to look between your computer screen and the Messages window floating off to the side, and then move it again to move to the Slack window on the other side. which for me, I don't find that bothersome. But in talking on ATP about it, my co-host John seemed very bothered by that, which is fair. I'm not saying he's wrong. It's just it seems to bother him in a way it doesn't bother me. But it was amazing, and it works extremely well. The thing where you look at your computer and there's a little hovering connect button that you can click, or I guess pinch, if you will, that is not terribly reliable. But one of the options in Control Center is a Mac Virtual Display button that you can hit. And then it'll show you the Macs that are presumably connected to the same iCloud account that are nearby. And you can connect to one, or I believe more of them. I've only ever tried one, but I think you can get two or maybe even more than two of these going concurrently to different machines. One way or another. It is incredible. It worked extremely well. It was so nice. It so happened that our checking account, had a statement post as I was on the train, and we use an app called Banktivity in order to track our finances and whatnot. And so I was reconciling the checking account, and I could do that on the laptop screen. But not only is the laptop screen not very big, but if there was somebody sitting next to me, they could see exactly what's going on the screen. Whereas if you do the Mac Virtual Display thing, the Mac screen goes black. It's literally black. It's not one of those things where you can only see it from a certain angle. It is black. And so there's literally nothing anyone can do to watch you. And so I balanced the checkbook on a 4K screen, hurtling down the train tracks at 110 miles an hour, or whatever the case may be. And it was phenomenal. It was so great. And it worked very well. It was not laggy. I mean, I was connected to a little mobile hotspot thing. I was not tethering at the time. Through a weird circumstance, a series of weird events, I just so happened to have a hotspot that I was borrowing, and that worked really well. Perhaps it wouldn't be so great if you were tethering. I don't know. I haven't tried it yet, but it worked super well. And the thing that really blew my mind, and the thing I was hoping so desperately for in the week or so leading up to the Vision Pro, is what if universal control works? And as a reminder, universal control is where you set your iPad next to your Mac, and you can just swoosh the mouse cursor through the edge of your Mac and onto the iPad. And so your Mac's keyboard and mouse is controlling the iPad sitting next to the Mac. Have you done this at all with Macs and iPads or anything?
I've done it with another Mac. So I've done it Mac to
Mac
interesting. Before.
Okay.
Had a MacBook on the desk. And actually, I didn't realize that was still on at one point. And I was like, why does my mouse keep disappearing? Where's the mouse going?
Yeah.
And it's on the other Mac. So I've done that, but I haven't done it to an iPad yet.
I mean, it's the same.
Yeah, it's the same concept, though.
But here it is. If you're looking at something and you jiggle your Mac's mouse, you get an iPad-style circular cursor on that Vision Pro window. So I can use my physical keyboard that's on my, connected to or literally on my MacBook Pro, and I can type in the Vision OS native Slack. Does that make sense?
Yes.
It is amazing, because let me tell you, the number one biggest complaint I have about the Vision Pro, far and away, by a mile, more than the weight, more than the cost, maybe not more than cost, but more than almost anything else, is the fact that text entry freaking sucks.
Yeah.
It sucks. Because your choices are either dictation or bring a virtual keyboard close enough to you that you can hunt and peck with one finger and one finger only, or you can do the same hunting and pecking, but with your eyeballs and by pinching, the same way you would control anything else. But if you're doing the Mac Virtual Display dance, suddenly you have a keyboard connected. And so you can use virtual control from your Mac to your Vision Pro, and it rules. I am so excited to use this at a library, and then maybe once I build up the self-confidence at Publix or Wegmans or whatever. I actually scheduled, our libraries here are amazing, which is why I talk about them so much, but I scheduled, I reserved a couple of teeny tiny meeting rooms that are only designed for a couple of people. And I've reserved a couple of them over the next week or two so I can bring this to the library and try it out. And I don't need to do this in a conference room or anything, but I feel like if I, put it on in the conference room and stare at the wall, not stare at the outside glass wall, but stare at the wall on the back of it, maybe it won't be quite so conspicuous. But yeah, it is extremely, extremely cool. And I cannot say enough good things about it. The only thing I wish I could get, a little bit more resolution, and I wish I could get more than one screen. Both of those would be extremely neat. But as it is today, it's more than serviceable. It's actually pretty delightful.
I think Ben at Stratechery was saying that he heard from little birdies that people inside Apple can look at two 2 screens. Ben Thompson.
Yeah, I've heard that rumbling. I haven't heard it firsthand, but I've heard that rumbling before, and that would be pretty great.
That would be pretty good, I think. That's one of the things I'm most excited to try, just using a Mac because you really are strapping a Mac to your face, essentially. I know everyone says it's an iPad to your face, but I feel like it's a Mac to your face. There's a lot of laptop in that tiny thing.
Yeah.
And I have a 24-inch iMac. Before that, it was a 15-inch MacBook Pro, and then before that was an 11-inch MacBook Air. I haven't always had the largest display to work on with my Mac, and I just think the ability to bring my computer into this other computer, but then use that computer's apps to around the other ones, I just think would be a really neat way to work in an office space. With your mouse and keyboard, whatever mouse and keyboard you have, as long as it's connected to your Mac. It could be a mechanical keyboard. It could be, it could just be your Magic Keyboard. It could be, whatever kind of keyboard you need, I suppose. And, from an accessibility perspective, that's enticing. I wish maybe more pairing directly to the headset was an optional. I've heard that can be an issue, pairing certain devices to it. So,
well, as long as you're using Apple keyboards and Apple mice, it works lickety-split from what I've gathered. It's just third-party stuff. I have not tried this, but apparently third-party stuff, it can get a little bit squirrely depending on whether or not the third-party stuff is as robustly supportive of Bluetooth stuff. And I don't know the specifics, but apparently it gets a little bit squirrely.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, that I'm excited to try that, and that's definitely a thing that the demo doesn't do, and that makes sense. What are they going to do? Bring a MacBook Air out from... I mean, that could be pretty compelling. Like, bring out their smallest MacBook Air and go, well, wouldn't you look at that? Just click this, and now look, you have a 4K 50-inch Mac display right here, and no one else can see what you're doing. I mean, I suppose that's just more work for them in the demo space, so I get why it's not a thing. But that is certainly one of the things I'm most keen to try, and I won't really get to try it until I own one of these things. Which I
or come to Richmond,
and then do all the stuff on Casey's laptop. Type.
Right, exactly.
Clickety clack.
Indeed.
I wanted to talk to you about actually that input stuff really quick, specifically eye tracking. So eye tracking is in the PlayStation VR 2, and I think it's in one of the Quest. I think the Quest Pro and maybe the Quest 3.
I think that's right.
So I've used eye tracking before, and I think it's straight up magic. It is absolute wizardry, I feel like. Using your eyeballs to look at something and interact with it makes total sense in VR. And in games, you're interacting with objects, you're picking up things or menus and selecting text and things like that. So doing it as the main means of input on the Vision Pro, I think contributes to that magic kind of feel that they're going for. And there was a moment in the demo where I forget what app, it was probably Photos or something along the side. The way the app is designed is the menus and things are kind of off to the left, like they would be maybe in an iPad app or certain Mac apps.
That's a convention for native Vision Pro apps. Now, not all apps are native. When I said native Slack app earlier, strictly speaking, that wasn't actually accurate. It's really an iPad Slack app that's running in the context of the Vision Pro. But for native Vision Pro stuff, that's the convention, is to have, I believe they're called ornaments, off to the side, the top, or the bottom.
Okay. And so I'm looking at these ornaments off to the side, and it clicks with me. I notice suddenly, man, it's like selecting everything. It's moving around really fast. Like the selection, and I'm like, oh, it's because my eyes are just moving very rapidly because I'm trying to soak all this in, right? And I'm just and it just so happens to be that's where I'm looking as I'm sucking it in. I'm curious how you feel about eye tracking, if you feel like it's as magical as I think it is.
Mostly, yes. I found that maybe this very well may be a user error thing, because it appears that it's fairly sensitive to how you've put the Vision Pro on your head, and it tries to remember the calibration settings from the last time you've used the Vision Pro. And I suspect, I don't know, But I suspect what's happening is I'm just ever so slightly tweaking the positioning on my face, not deliberately. It's just kind of what's happening. And because of that, I think it's throwing the eye tracking off somewhat regularly. When it works, which is most of the time, it works phenomenally well, and it's instant. It's unreal how quick it is. I cannot begin to tell you how fast and accurate it is. But every once in a while, I find I need to go into settings and like rejigger the tracking, like do the same dot circle dance thing and reset it. And usually after that, it's better. Again, I'm not saying this is a Vision Pro issue. I can't say too much about what happened when I had the lab, but I didn't really have this happen when I was in the lab. So I suspect that it's just some oddity about how I'm putting this on or something like that. But nevertheless, it is magic. It is 100% magic. It is unreal how well it works. I cannot believe how well it works. It's a little bit tougher with iPad native apps, like Slack, for example, because it seems like those touch targets, if you will, the buttons and whatnot.
Yeah, well, are look targets.
Yeah, I guess they're just a little bit too small and a little bit too close together. So sometimes it's like if you're looking at a Slack window, for example, in the upper left, there's an icon for the particular work group you're in, and you have to tap or click that or what have you in order to switch to a different workspace or work group, whatever they call it. And sometimes I find it very hard to get the Vision Pro to understand the difference between the button below it and that button. So between the home button and that choose your Slack button. And I think that if and when there's a Vision OS, truly Vision OS native Slack rather than the iPad app running on Vision OS, I suspect one of the things they'll do is maybe space those out a little bit or something in order to make it a little bit easier for the eye tracking to work. I feel like I sound like I'm complaining a lot, and I don't mean to. It is freaking magic. It is unreal how well it works. It is incredible how well it works. It's just, it's not 100%. It's 90, 95%, which is phenomenal. I'm not complaining about that at all. It's just, it's not absolutely perfect.
Yeah, you think about it. I think about it kind of in the way pinch to zoom, I think, is probably one of the most famous examples. It's like, well, how are we going to, how would you zoom in on a picture or zoom in on a map here on the iPhone? Well, you just pinch to zoom. It's a natural thing to do, and it makes logical sense. And so, but that works. I feel confident in saying that works 100% of the time. Is there a bug in software where it doesn't work? But anytime you want to zoom in on a picture, you pinch to zoom, and it works in. And so I think that extends to, well, if I want to look at something and pick it, I look at it and then pinch my fingers or whatever. But when it doesn't work, that's when I think that magic, that illusion comes down. And obviously, pinching to zoom is a much easier thing to program for and predict than your eyeballs, which are moving constantly.
Right.
And, it's measuring I think it's infrared light is how it works. It's measuring, eyes and back, and that R1 chip is doing all sorts of crazy stuff in there. And so I get that the difficulty scales way up when you're dealing with eyeballs instead of fat fingers.
Yep.
And programming for that, I would have to imagine. So it's certainly only something that's going to get better with time. But yeah, when you're looking at something and you can't pick it or it's not working, then you're stuck because there's no other means to interact with objects unless you pair trackpads and keyboards and all that stuff.
Or Mac Virtual Display, but you're still right.
Right. So I think that actually is a good segue to developing for the Apple Vision Pro, which is something that you are doing. You've mentioned you've done a lab, which I imagine you have to take that experience on the whole to the grave. And,
I do.
But you now have an Apple Vision Pro in your home. You're working on Callsheet for it. I'm curious what that's like compared to something like the iPhone or the iPad. I mean, do you have to put the headset? I mean, you're putting the headset on at some point. Like, how does your approach to developing shift here for the Vision Pro?
Right. I don't have a ton of time with doing development work specifically in it because I've just been exploring the Vision Pro broadly. Right. But yeah, you're right. I mean, I think the best way to do it seems to be to bring your Mac display into the Vision Pro world, because then you can have them side by side, right? Which is pretty neat. or at least I feel like I've tried that at some point. Maybe I'm lying to you, but I believe that I tried that at least once. But I mean, the thing that's tough though is that the Vision Pro by default doesn't have any means by which you get the builds of your app onto it other than Wi-Fi, and
unless you pay $300,
unless you, which I have done, but I haven't even opened the box yet because I'm hopeful as I do spend some time getting more experience with this because I've only done it for a second. Maybe I'll find that Wi-Fi is sufficient and I don't need the $300 developer strap. So to back up, when you can optionally, if you have a developer account, you can optionally pay Apple $300 to get a replacement for the right side AirPod and associated band piece that the AirPod is on, or I'm sorry, not AirPod, EarPod, and the piece that it's on. So you pop off the right-hand side of the thing that goes between the Vision Pro itself and the rear band. And then you replace that with one that has another EarPod on it, which I think part of the reason it's so darn expensive.
Yeah.
And then it also has, in the same place that the other side has the power connector, it has a similar looking thing, but it's a dongle that's a USB-C receptacle. So then you can plug in USB-C to C from your computer to your Vision Pro. And again, I haven't even opened the box for the developer strap, as they call it. Strap was the word I was looking for. I've only glanced off the outer atmosphere of developing for this thing so far. But my hope is that I'll just end up returning the developer strap and that Wi-Fi is sufficient, but we'll see what happens. But I do need to, I've just been so busy traveling and everything. I need to sit down. Presumably next week, I'll start doing that and working on the Callsheet Vision Pro build. I did a fair bit at the lab, and I have a branch where I've worked on a lot of this, but that branch is now 3 months out of date or whatever it is. So I got to bring that branch back up to the latest and greatest and, start doing this all over again. But I am looking forward to it, especially with the Mac Virtual Display thing. I think that's going to be super sweet.
I think Callsheet is an app that makes perfect sense in the Vision Pro, especially as a media consumption device. I mean, you've got your movie right in front of you, and Callsheet's off to my left, and I can... Now, you can't obviously do like the X-ray thing that Amazon does integrated into Prime, but
unfortunately not, yeah.
Yeah, that just doesn't work. But you'll still be able to look it up and it be right there. And you don't even have to pull your phone out. Like, it's so easy to imagine. It's almost one of the perfect apps kind of out of the gate here since it is such a media-focused device.
Exactly, and that's why it's really in my best interest to get working on this ASAP. I had a couple of fixes that I wanted to make prior to working on this, but I just got the last one out the door yesterday morning. I think it was morning. And so next week, that is my intention, is to dive, hot and heavy into the Vision OS version of this. And that would be honest to goodness Vision OS native, not the iPad app in Vision OS, but a truly native Vision OS version. And it'll look and behave pretty much the same as the iOS and iPad OS versions, but with some affordances to just make it feel a little more at home on Vision OS. And I'm really looking forward to it. My hope is, before the end of January, but that's end of January. That already happened.
Smart guy.
Before the end of February is what I meant to say. No promises, but that's my hope. And part of the reason why this wasn't already done, leaving aside the fact that I had other things to work on for Callsheet, but the simulator is not stupendous for the Vision Pro. Like, it's functional, but it's not great, and it's much nicer to develop on the device. And so that's what I'm going to be doing, and I think that'll save me a whole bunch of time. And I'm really looking forward to working on it next week because I think it's going to be great.
Yeah, that's very, very exciting to hear and eventually see someday. I mean, I totally out of the gate. I mean, I remember when Callsheet came out, it was featured in the App Store. I remember seeing that and sending you the screenshot. I was so excited for you. I totally can see it, again for the Vision Pro being, it's like, well, look at this. Now you can look things up in here with us and all that stuff. It'll be cool to see the actors in the movies, and I'm excited for you. I think it's going to be really, really cool.
I appreciate it. I sure hope so.
I know Callsheet is the main focus, but I had a thought the other day. I was like, man, Peek of You would kind of make sense, and the app icon does look like he's wearing a Vision Pro in the Peek of You thing. Because Peek of You totally would work for that guest mode where you could just select.
It does.
Peek of You, and then they could view only the photos, and you would have the confidence that they're only viewing the photos you allow.
Yeah, you're exactly right. You're the first person to say that to me. One or two other people have said it since. You're exactly right. It makes perfect sense. I got to investigate, like, do panoramas work in third-party apps in the way that I expect? I honestly don't know, and it wouldn't surprise me if they don't. But I got to look into it. That obviously is second fiddle after getting Callsheet out the door. But it's certainly worth exploring, and I do plan to explore it at some point.
You know, and then Masquerade, you could just have it pop emojis over people in real life. They all work.
That's true. If only. That would be very cool. But I don't think that one's going to happen. Peekaboo is a 50-50 shot. Masquerade is unlikely.
Yes, I would know. Well, the real deep cut would be to bring Vignette back somehow.
Yeah, Vignette or fast text. Yeah, but I don't
it can pull in people's personas.
Right. Yeah,
that would
only.
be something. That would be crazy.
That would be something for sure.
Before I let you go, before you wrap up, if you don't mind, I had a Easter egg request, feature request for Callsheet, and I think it's in line with something you're already working on, if you'll permit me. Mm-hmm. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you're working on some sort of feature where, you know, you can search Anthony Hopkins and see, and I don't know who else is in it, and Keith or Sutherland. I don't know if they've ever been in a movie together, but you can kind of see where they overlap, right? Like,
oh, yes. I've started that just barely, and then everything keeps getting in the way. And so it's on the to-do list. It's just not at the top.
Right. Okay. So in line with that feature, I think you should implement an Easter egg or some sort of thing where it's just 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. I think you should bring it in.
I wonder...
Because then you could just see the
it.
connections to Kevin Bacon, because he's everywhere.
Yeah, that actually, can you imagine that, like a mind map, 3D space sort of thing?
It's like,
that would be
they were
cool.
in these movies and stuff. I think you can do it.
That would be neat. I don't know if I have the development chops in order to make that happen.
I believe
in you.
Neat. That's my.
Thanks, Dad.
It'd be so fun, you know, just to see
would
little
be fun.
Kevin
It would
Bacon
be fun.
connections everywhere.
It would.
Well, thank you, Casey, for taking time out of your day.
Of course, thanks
talk
for
to
having
me
me back.
About the Apple Vision Pro, the future,
it's
spatial
always a pleasure.
computing.
Yeah, the future is here. The future is now. It's tomorrow's technology today, as MKBHD said, and he's exactly right. It is very cool. So just come on and visit. Come on and visit, and I'll strap you into the Matrix for a minute.
Oh my goodness gracious, that'd be crazy.
Honestly, the right answer is for me to come to you, so I can use it as an excuse to go to Disney. But we'll see. I think my family would murder me.
Yeah, I mean, well, let's see. One Apple Vision Pro is probably, 3 tickets to Disney now? 2 tickets?
I think it's about 3.5 minutes in Disney World, given how expensive Disney has become.
It's getting a little ridiculous down here. It's a little nutty. But yeah, you definitely, if you ever come back, when you come back down here, just bring the Vision Pro. And I'm sure my apparently large face will fit just fine, and apparently your small face, as we've compared our face shield size. But
indeed.
Thank you so much for joining me. Folks can find Casey all over the internet. There's a jingle and everything. You can listen to ATP, the Accidental Tech Podcast. Him, Marco Arment, John Siracusa talk about all sorts of stuff every week, every Thursday, live on Wednesday nights. You are at Casey Liss on Instagram, CaseyLiss.com. Was it at Casey Liss at Mastodon.social? Gosh, I hate it so much. I hate it. It's so bad.
Yeah, the conclusion I've come to is Casey Liss on Mastodon.social is how I like to phrase it.
Okay.
But it's still not perfect. It's just that's the least way to phrase it. But yes, you can find me on Mastodon is all you need to say. Really.
There we go. Why did Elon have to ruin handles? He just had to make handles more complicated. He's forced this upon us. It sucks. It's the worst. Dark times. But thank you. You can find Casey stuff. Callsheet. Go check it out on the iOS App Store. It's on the iPad and the iPhone, correct?
Yep. And it actually will run on a Mac. Honestly,
so you have that toggle.
I have at least put a modicum of effort into making the iPad app not garbage, but I have not even. I've done the literal bare minimum that I can do on the Mac side. So don't get too excited about that. It works, but only just.
Okay. All right. So iPhone, iPad, and a little bit of the Mac, and coming soon-ish to Apple Vision Pro. So all that's missing is the watch.
Yeah, that's it. That's what I need. I don't even want to think about it. Developing for the watch is, I haven't done it with SwiftUI, but developing for the watch in the past was a nightmare. So
that doesn't
hard pass on that. Thank you very much.
All right, duly noted. You can find my work over at maxfrequency.net, all my writing, And then my other show, Chapter Select, where we bounce through a series exploring its evolution, design, and legacy. We just wrapped up our Pokemon season, playing all the mainline Pokemon games, and we've begun work on Season 7 and 8, Metroid Prime and Castlevania. So stay tuned for all those fun things. But thank you all so much for listening, and until next time, adios.
I hear you. There you are.
Oh my goodness gracious.
I can't see me, it just occurred to me. I can see you, but I can't see me. There's no
There's no preview.
I don't
That's
hold on. All right, hold on. Wait. This is not what I want, I don't think. All right, well here I can do this anyway. So now you can see in a second what I'm seeing. Hopefully now you can see what I'm seeing.
Oh.
So here's the backyard and the screened-in porch. Are you seeing my head whip around right now?
Yeah, you're looking.
And so
around.
there's and you can see the hand tracking. But
yeah.
All right, so now how do I come back and then all right. And so now it should be me again.
Yeah, wow. This is weird. This is so weird.
How uncanny is the uncanny valley?
It looks like you. It's you. But it's
ish.
Yeah, but it's not you. You're turning your teeth. Wow.
Yeah, so I'm turning to my right, and so you're coming out of my left ear, and then flip-flop the other way.
Oh, and you can hear me in a
yep.
semi-spatial way.
Right?
Oh, weird.
Super weird. I see, do I see Quest controllers behind you over your left shoulder?
Yeah, I've reacquainted myself so I could have better, remind of the context of where we've been.
All right, so hold on. Actually, I'm gonna come back, and I'm trying to close that window, bring you back, do this. All right, so now you should see me in a moment, or see my view. All right, so then hopefully you can see me, or the view.
Yes.
All right, so now there we go. So now I'm somewhere else, baby. I can do this, and can I? Yeah, you can't get any bigger than that apparently. But you are now
crazy.
On the sand. Oh, and there's my hands, but weird, right?
Whoa, very weird. Very weird.
I can bring this.
You're in a desert?
Yep. I'm trying to. There we go. I can bring that over there if I wanted. I can. How do I do this? I can. Nope, not that. Go away. I have to go to the home screen. Nope, not that either. Down. And we can go to Hawaii together.
Okay. Yep.
So now
it's interesting. I actually hear the birds, and I assume I don't know if that's actually in Virginia though, or in.
Wait, hold on. Now let me turn the environment off. No, there's a woodpecker in the distance.
Okay, I hear birds in real life.
No, but you do. No, but that's a legitimate question because I don't know if it's on this one. I haven't used this one as much, but when I go back to Joshua Tree, I believe, and then I think it typically, perhaps not on a FaceTime call, but it would typically show or play some sort of ambient noise, or maybe it's not Joshua Tree. Maybe it's which one is the other one? Oh, Mount Hood. That's what I'm thinking of. I'm sorry, not Joshua Tree. It's Mount Hood.
This is the one I did. Okay.
Yeah. This is, I think, my favorite. This just appeals to my general sensibilities. But yeah, I can hear a real life woodpecker coming from over there.
That way.
Yeah. Oh, look at can you see the up? So up here, I don't know how much.
Little floating. Something.
Right now, look what happens when I pitch my head downward. It starts to glow in you.
Oh,
do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Isn't that weird? Anyway,
what is that?
That's
UI
I think
element?
that's it's telling me that
center?
I'm. Well, sort of. So let me cancel that. So if I look way up, where that blob would normally be a chevron, and then this is your control center. But you get to it the same space that blob is, right?
Okay. Yeah.
It's not typically a chevron. I'm sorry, it's not typically that icon. It's typically a chevron. Also, I don't know if you happen to have listened to ATP yet or not, but these two icons that I'm looking at, the airplane and this guy, keep those in mind because that'll probably be relevant later.
Travel mode, right?
Yes, but let me go back to it. Yes, I'm spoiling it. Whoops. I'm spoiling ATP now. Let me come back.
I'm about halfway through the episode.
No worries. So I turned on airplane mode, which I'm not going to do now because I think it'll cut off the call. Thinking, okay, I'm in a moving vehicle. They say that it's designed for airplanes, so I'm going to hit airplane mode. I'm an idiot. What I needed to do was travel mode. And so when I
Oh, they're
turned
two
on
distinct things.
right, exactly. So I turned on airplane mode, didn't even think twice about it, only to then realize on the return trip back from New York, wait a second, what the hell is this thing? Oh, shit, that's travel mode.
So
Whoopsie
that's
doopsie.
the. I watched Casey Neistat's video, and the
Right.
subway it leaves. That's what travel mode is.
Well, that's what travel mode is supposed to avoid. Now,
Okay.
well, we can talk about it on. I certainly did talk about it on ATP. I'm happy to talk about it again. But suffice to say, with this not on, bad things happen. So anyway, I can close.
Okay.
Hold on, try to. There we go. And then I can make you not see yourself.
There we
And
go.
that. All right.
It's
So now I'm back, baby.
And now it's interesting. Behind you, it's all blurred bokeh, very, very,
Right,
very
right, right.
soft. But it's Mount Hood. It looks like it's at least the colors of Mount Hood.
Oh,
It's
really? So if
representative so switch it back maybe to
Yeah,
Virginia
yeah.
or something.
Well, here, let
Or
me try.
wherever.
Here, now I'm on the moon. Well, I'm on the moon now.
That did not change.
All right, so let me crank back. So now I'm back at home.
Nope, nothing changed. Interesting.
All
I
right,
mean,
so
it's
guess
the
just-
blue and the green. I don't
Right,
know,
right,
it's like maybe is that what your back porch looks like, color-wise?
No, it's like a beige. And I'm actually sitting in front of what were once exterior windows. Well, I guess strictly speaking, they are exterior windows still. But
That's not a very
that's
flattering
a very
photo.
flat. That does look like Mount Hood. You're right. Well, I wasn't on Mount Hood when we started the call. I don't know.
Maybe it pulled it in from the screen share. I don't know. New territory.
Anyway, if you're satisfied, I can shut all this down and I can go on. All right, give me like a minute and a half, 2 minutes to get upstairs, and then we'll start properly recording.
Sounds good.
Okay, bye.
Talk to you in a minute.